On this episode, we talk with Dan Burden about blue zones. Then, DOT Secretary Anthony Foxx announces a new approach to ped bike safety. Stay tuned.
We're in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, talking with Dan Burden, who's Director of Inspiration and Innovation at Blue Zones. What is Blue Zones?
Blue Zones is a new approach to bring the right partners together to create healthier cities. It's all built around 9 solid principles, originally researched by Dan Buettner, but now implemented in a way that we build better cities that make walking natural again and help people get better diets, better lifestyles, all the things it takes for people to live longer, happier, and better.
Give us an example of a couple of those 9 principles.
Well, the big one, the tough one to work on, which is the one I work on, which is the built environment. We need to change the built environment to support people. Another one is nutrition. People need to eat, mostly focus on plant-based diet. Still can eat almost anything they currently eat, but need to transform to where more of their food is plant-based. And then there's lifestyle. Being able to take walks daily, staying active, and having a good social circle with people. Another one is what is called a walking Moai. It's a group of people that take walks together regularly so that they support one another. They're always there for one another, and that friendship circle adds to longevity and life and happiness. The general thought is all human beings are genetically predisposed to a certain number of years, but it can all be given an added lift up to 9 more years. And that's pretty phenomenal. And live out their lives with greater health throughout all of their years if they were able to live in a community that's planned around the concept of blue zones.
What does a Director of Inspiration and Innovation do?
Well, it's my title. So first of all, we get inspired to innovate a title. The main thing is I finally found a title that fits my personality, what I actually do. I go into a community after having a chance to assess what the conditions are to then help the community innovate new ideas and to start building model projects. In time, find a marquee project that really shows them that they can do a lot more and then start to transform their code and their principles and practice so that they now build really great, not just complete streets, but complete communities.
And what you've done over the years, how's that led up to what you're doing now?
You know, I like to say that everything you do in life leads up to the next thing, and this one is absolutely the case. As I first started my work, I thought, well, gee, I just learned technically how to help people with something and then found out, no, that doesn't sell. People are stuck in a certain culture, a certain habit, a certain way of doing things that worked in the past. So what I learned to do is to really start to create a craft of working with people, start with wherever they are, at whatever level they are, build their confidence that they can build a better community, then give them a vision of what that better community might be, and then see the projects actually get built so that now we have many built products. So what I've now transitioned into is the fulfillment of where I can do that in mass, in great quantity, working with those communities that are ready to be inspired and to move on.
And are we talking about sort of low income, inner city or rural communities? Are we talking about suburbs where there's wealth but there's just not walkable? What sort of places do you work?
Yeah, I work in every type of neighborhood and community. I personally prefer to work in communities that have been overlooked for years, to really start to bring back the hope and the inspiration and get the things on the ground so that they realize that they're in charge of their neighborhood and their community. But the whole notion of blue zones is those communities that are ready to really make the political commitment and then eventually the staff commitment to now start to build things differently. Something I like to say is that we're entering into a new era of humanity. All the things that we saw in the late 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s was fairly predictable. We knew what that world would be. We knew how to work within that frame. The world has changed. From here on out, we're going to enter what's referred to as a VUCA world: volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. Everything is speeding up, and if we don't change with the times, if we try to keep the practices of before, we really are doomed financially and in terms of our health, in terms of a sustainable planet, all the things. We've really got to pay attention to the fact that the future is going to be quite different, needs to be different than the past.
And you mentioned hope a minute ago. Why is hope important, and how do you inspire hope in a neighborhood that may seem hopeless?
Yeah. When we go into a neighborhood that lacks hope, that has never had anything work in their favor, that they've always been overlooked, their schools, their streets, their parks, everything has been declining. We have to find a couple of people still believe that they can live in a better world. People who are optimists, people who are willing to take charge and bring change. So when I go into a community, those are the folks I'm looking for. I won't find them in dozens and dozens. I'll find them in maybe 2 or 3 or 6 or 8 or 10 people. But that's all we need. They will be attacked by naysayers, the people who are afraid of change, who don't know what change would mean for them, who do almost anything they could to stop. But in time, we can teach them the skills to really believe in your dream. So if you have hope, you can dream. If you can dream, you can have a vision. And if you can have that vision, now you can have a plan. And with a plan, you can create an action committee to start to make change.
Places you go to, how often are you able to find those key people in the neighborhood? And have you ever come across a place where it just wasn't going to work out?
Well, let me start with finding the place where it won't work out. If someone has settled in, they decide that their claim to fame is to stop things, and people are letting them do that, then I cannot help that community. I can see the people that want the change, but if those folks who are in control, for whatever set of personal reasons or whatever, of just stopping everything from happening, we have to have the counterpoint, the counterbalance, in order to bring that community away from that condition. Rarely you can turn that person around that's creating the problem, and that's what you try to do first. But if that person has the leadership of the community and other people are afraid of them or whatever it might be, no, we basically say, look, we only have so much time and energy. We'll go and work with the communities that do get it, and maybe if we can get enough great models going on around this community, then this community will come back to us and say, now we're ready. So that's what we try to do. We try to be pragmatic in our approach to building communities that are successful.
You know, what challenges are there? This outsider that comes in, and how do you avoid being the person that's just telling them what to do, and people have told them what to do before?
Yeah, I'm a change agent. A change agent cannot meddle with somebody else's neighborhood. When the neighborhood is ready and we get clear signs, then I can come in and with a bit of charisma, certainly inspiration, show people what they're capable of becoming. And if enough people get that, and I can stand in front of an audience and quickly figure that out. I know within 1 or 2 minutes if this is going to be a home run. Maybe we'll only drive a few bases or something like that. But the point is, you can tell. When people are ready, they give off a signal that they are ready for change. They're just looking for someone to mobilize them, to get them to collaborate. Things that they didn't know how to do themselves or they just couldn't quite do themselves. When the right outsider comes in and is supportive and understands their dream and shares that dream and visualizes that dream with them, now we can perform magic.
The United States is a big place, a lot of communities. You get around a lot. I mean, you're rarely home, but you can't get everywhere. How can these ideas be contagious so that a community that doesn't have the benefit of Dan Burden coming for a visit can still make progress?
Well, we're now doing a lot of what I refer to as train the trainers. There are a lot of people that are ready to be mentored. I consider that the most important part of my work, is to mentor others, to take people that are sharp and they have this burning fire inside them. They don't want the world to stay the same. They want the world to be better. You can pick them out in a heartbeat. So I find those people, and sometimes I only get a chance to deliver a speech which ignites the flame inside of them. 10 or 12 years later, I go into the town, I see it totally rebuilt. They give me credit for it. All I did is gave a speech. So those are the big wins. So my job at the age of 70 is to still pull off the models or the miracles whenever I can, but to now teach other people how to do that, so that this is an ongoing effort and it starts to spread.
When I look across the expanse of our transportation system, right now is the safest time to travel in the history of traveling across the board. It's the safest time to fly. It's the safest time to drive. It's the safest time to take a train or a ship. But there is an area that defies this broad trend of safety, where injuries are going up, not down, where deaths are rising, not falling, where more victims are being wheeled into our hospital and unfortunately some not being wheeled out. For pedestrians and bicyclists, it is not the safest time to travel. From 2011 to 2012, which is the latest data we have, pedestrian deaths rose 6% and bike fatalities went up almost 7%. One pedestrian died every 2 hours. At the Department of Transportation, which has been around for about 48 years, when Lyndon Johnson, the president at that time, established the department, he said that keeping the traveling public safe from harm should be our top priority. And I agree with him. So when we talk about the traveling public, as I said before, it's not just planes and trains and automobiles. It's also pedestrians and bicyclists. And if there's one innovation that we must bring into focus for the country on this front, it's that if you're walking or if you're bicycling, that's every bit as important and every bit as concerning to the U.S. Department of Transportation as any other mode of transportation. So we have to look at how we're approaching walking and bicycling. And we have to ask ourselves, given these trends, what should we be doing differently? Should we be doing something more? And the answer to that question is absolutely yes. For years, the message pedestrians and bicyclists have been given is the following: be responsible for your own safety. Walk at your own risk, bike at your own risk. So they hear, cross at the crosswalk, wear your helmet. Bike on the right side of the road, walk on the left. Obey the signals, follow the rules, be smart, be safe, be vigilant. That kind of basic safety behavior is obvious, but as I said before, it cuts both ways. It's not a one-sided situation. And so drivers as well as pedestrian and cyclists must hold up their end of the deal. But either way, education alone is not going to be enough. We can't just tell bicyclists and pedestrians, follow the rules of the road, without recognizing that, as I said before, in some cases, there's no safe place for them to be. After all, we don't tell drivers just drive under the speed limit. We don't just tell captains don't sink the ship. We make sure our highways are well paved and well marked and that our sea lanes are navigable. Government has a role to play in this by creating safe places to travel. Infrastructure has a role to play in safe travel. And so for these reasons, today I'm proud to announce DOT's new approach to bike ped safety. It will create safer streets, safer communities, and safer policies, and raise the bar on bike ped infrastructure. Now, this has been part of our work at USDOT for a while. In fact, some of it predated me. Under Secretary LaHood, my predecessor, our department issued a new policy statement to ensure safe walking and bicycling facilities are incorporated into transportation projects. And that was a great start. Through our Tiger program, we've also been able to throw federal support behind some of the most game-changing bike ped projects around the country in cities like Houston and Indianapolis. But today, we're building on this effort. So let me outline our bike ped safety initiative for you. One of our top priorities through this initiative will be closing the gaps in pedestrian and bicycle networks where even if people are following the rules, the risk of a crash is too high. These gaps and the dangers they present are especially apparent in low-income communities, where a study by Governing Magazine found that pedestrian fatalities happen twice as often than they do in high-income areas. That's not surprising to me. Compared to high-income neighborhoods, low-income neighborhoods are roughly twice as likely to lack things like sidewalks or marked crosswalks or street lights, just like the example I started to tell you about. So we just finished hosting pilot and walking and bicycling assessments in cities as diverse as Boston, Fort Worth, and Lansing. We brought together all of our stakeholders and we identified gaps like these and we found ways to fix them. This experience will provide the rest of our field offices with a roadmap for the next several months because we'll be leading one of these assessments in every single state in the United States of America. And as we identify where the gaps are, we'll also be developing a new set of tools and resources to help us close them. We'll be releasing all the information about this new tool set over the next 18 months. And we have a summary of some of them to pass out to you today. One tool we'll be providing is a road diet guide that will be encouraging state DOTs to use through our Everyday Counts initiative. You all have heard of road diets, right? Yeah? It's not like Atkins. Road diets are being implemented, and when they're implemented, they're providing more space for pedestrians and bicyclists. We're seeing safety improve for everyone where these road diets go into place. They're one of the greatest success stories in new road designs. And if we can get this conversation moving at a national level, I believe this could be the beginning of what we hope is a new, safer road for all travelers. To guide these efforts, we've also launched a pedestrian and bicycle safety action team. And we also plan to re-examine our policies and practices that without intending to do so have occasionally resulted in road designs that shut out people on foot and on bicycle. Walking or bicycling might not be everyone's primary way to get around, but everyone's still a pedestrian. Because even if it's not taking a whole trip by walking or biking and walking connect people. They help play a role in that first and last mile as you get places. And by the way, we also know that encouraging more bicycling and walking is rewarded by economic growth. It's really interesting. So I'm in Indianapolis a few months ago, and I'm spending some time with Mayor Greg Ballard there, one of the great mayors in this country. And he told me two interesting things. He said, you know, a few years ago we weren't really doing much of this bike ped stuff, but we've been doing so much of it lately that they invited me to go to Portland to talk about it. Indianapolis going to Portland, that's a game change. But then he said, you know, we have this major trail network that we've been building in Indianapolis. It's kind of hard to help people get the vision initially. But then we just recently had a company that we were trying to recruit into Indianapolis. And the company was choosing between some other places around the country, and they picked Indianapolis. But they had one condition. They said that we'll come here, but we'll only come here if we can be located on that trail. And so this isn't just about mobility and quality of life, folks. This is also about economic growth. I could tell that story over and over again about different places around the country. That's not a unique example. And what it points out more largely is the fact that as our country continues to grow, I mean, we're going to have a population explosion in the U.S. I don't know if that message has gotten to you, but we're going to have 100 million more people by 2050 in this country. And what we're also finding is that population is clustering around metro areas. So that's, let me be clear about this. That's not just cities. That's cities, suburban rings, and rural rings around those suburban rings. Small pockets of regions around the country where population is concentrated. And guess what? Many cities are constrained by their footprint in building a whole lot more roads. And so as we start to see these surges in population, this concentration of population, and the limitations of our road networks, the question is, can we use them better? That's where concepts like complete streets come into place. Using the existing grid, but using it in a better way. And that's why, as we talk about this initiative, this bike ped initiative that we're launching today, it's critical to the future of our country, because I happen to believe that as our country continues to evolve, folks are going to be looking to live closer to the things they need to go do: work, play, grocery stores, etc. They're going to want to walk, and they're going to want to ride bikes. And if they don't have the facilities to do it, they won't be as readily able to do it safely. So this is a big deal. Now, I got one last thing to say about our initiative. We're going to put together the most comprehensive, forward-leaning initiative the U.S. DOT has ever put forward on bike ped issues. No question about it. If you're going to lose sleep about something, don't lose sleep about whether we're going to lean into this. We will. But our efforts would be much stronger if Congress passed a long-term surface bill. At the local level, I was a mayor, a city councilman. When we put more money into resurfacing, we used that opportunity to put more bike lanes in place. When we invested in capital facilities to build new roads, we built them to complete street standards. But when we are constantly fighting year after year just to get a few months of runway on highway funding, we lose opportunities to engage our states and our local communities in a broader conversation on how we can connect communities with these kinds of facilities. And so we are riding with the brakes on, so to speak, as a country when it comes to our surface system. And it impacts everything, including bike and pedestrian issues. So I want to leave you with a special message. We're going to do what we can at US DOT, and I think it's a lot to advance the ball. But we need you, wherever you are in this country, to raise your voices and demand that Congress act on a long-term surface bill. Because it is Americans who own this country, it is Americans who run this country, and it is Americans who are ultimately in charge of this country. And when you speak up, your members of Congress have to act.
Visit us on the internet at www.pedestrians.org.